The barn stood as a silent sentinel, weather-worn and filled with the echoes of the past. It was Daniel's domain, a space he retreated to when he needed solitude or when inspiration struck him for his woodworking projects. Today, it felt like a crypt, holding remnants of a life that I was still grappling with losing. I wiped away a tear and took a deep breath, steeling myself for the task ahead. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the floor as I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. Dust particles danced in the golden light, settling on the collection of tools, half-finished projects, and old furniture. "Grace, are you sure you want to do this today?" my friend Sarah asked, her voice gentle but concerned. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed protectively over her chest. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yes, I need to. I need to find some closure to move forward." My voice trembled, but there was a resoluteness behind it. "And I can't just leave it all here, gathering dust." Sarah gave me a tight-lipped smile, her eyes full of sympathy. "All right, I'll be right here if you need me." I started with the workbench, sorting through the tools, trying to find some semblance of order in the chaos. Each item I picked up seemed to carry a memory. The hammer Daniel used to build our kitchen table, the chisel he was so proud of, the saw he sharpened meticulously. It felt like I was intruding on his sacred space, but I knew I had to keep going. As I moved to the shelves in the back, I found boxes stacked haphazardly, some covered in cobwebs. One box in particular caught my eye. It was tucked away in the corner, almost as if it had been hidden deliberately. I dragged it out and blew off the thick layer of dust that coated the top. The box was heavier than I expected, and I struggled to carry it to the workbench. "Do you need help with that?" Sarah called out from the doorway. "No, I've got it," I replied, though my voice wavered with the effort. I set the box down and opened the lid. Inside were various trinkets, old photographs, and what looked like letters tied together with twine. Among the items was a worn leather-bound book. I pulled it out carefully, my fingers tingling with anticipation and dread. The cover was plain, unmarked, but the pages were filled with Daniel's handwriting. "What's that?" Sarah asked, stepping closer. It's Daniel's diary," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I glanced at her, my eyes wide. I didn't know he kept one. "Are you sure you want to read it?" she asked, her hand resting gently on my arm. "It could be painful." "I have to," I said firmly. "I need to know." I sat down on an old stool, the diary resting on my lap. With trembling hands, I opened it to the first page. Daniel's familiar scrawl brought a pang to my heart. July 15th, 2002. "Met Lillian today. She's incredible. I can't believe how much she makes me feel alive. And today, she told me she's pregnant. I don't know what to do. I love her, but I can't stay. Lillian," I muttered under my breath, feeling the name carve itself into my consciousness. "Who's Lillian?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Grace, maybe you should stop." "No, I need to know," I insisted, turning the pages frantically. The entries painted a picture of a passionate love affair of a woman named Lillian who had captured Daniel's heart long before he met me. And then the entry that shattered my world. December 3rd, 2002. "Lillian gave birth to our son today. Leo. He's perfect, but I can't be with them. It's tearing me apart, but I have to think of Grace. She doesn't know. She can't know." I dropped the diary, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. He had a son. He had a son, and he never told me. Sarah knelt beside me, her face etched with concern. "Grace, this is a lot to take in. Maybe you should take a break." "No," I said, shaking my head vehemently. "I need to finish this." I picked up the diary again, forcing myself to read on. Daniel wrote about his struggle to keep his two lives separate, about the guilt that ate away at him, and about the love he still felt for Lillian and their son. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Sarah hugged me tightly. "I don't know, Grace. I don't know." As the sun set, casting the barn in a dim orange glow, I sat there, holding the diary to my chest. My grief for Daniel mingled with a new, raw pain of betrayal. But amidst the heartache, I felt a spark of resolve. "I have to find Leo," I said quietly. "He's my responsibility now. He's Daniel's son, and that makes him part of my family." Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with both worry and admiration. "Are you sure, Grace? This won't be easy." I wiped away my tears and nodded. "I'm sure. It's what Daniel would have wanted even if he was too afraid to say it." In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of Daniel's hidden life, I made a decision that would change my own forever. The days that followed the discovery of Daniel's diary were a blur of grief and confusion. I found myself reading and rereading his words, trying to piece together the life he had hidden from me. The pain of his betrayal was fresh and sharp, but amidst the hurt, there was a growing sense of understanding and connection to the family he had kept secret. One rainy afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table, the diary open in front of me. The rain pattered against the windows, providing a soothing backdrop to my turbulent thoughts. I traced Daniel's handwriting with my finger, feeling a bittersweet closeness to him. "Grace, you look exhausted," Sarah said as she entered the kitchen, carrying a tray of tea and biscuits. She placed it on the table and sat across from me, her eyes filled with concern. I admitted, taking a sip of the chamomile tea she had made. "But I can't stop reading. I need to understand why he did this." Sarah reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "It's understandable, but you need to take care of yourself too. Have you found anything more?" I nodded, my eyes welling up with tears. He loved her, Sarah. He loved Lillian deeply. And Leo, he was so proud of his son. He wrote about their birthdays, their first steps, their laughter. He was torn apart by the decision to leave them. Sarah squeezed my hand. "It sounds like he was living with a lot of guilt." "Yes," I whispered, flipping to a page that had particularly struck me. August 10th, 2005. Leo's growing up so fast. Every time I see him, he looks more and more like Lillian. It breaks my heart that I can't be there for him every day. But Grace, she deserves all of me too. I can't split myself between two worlds. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. "Why didn't he tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why didn't he trust me enough to share this part of his life?" Sarah sighed, shaking her head. "Fear, probably. Fear of losing you. Fear of facing the consequences of his choices. People do strange things when they're afraid." I turned to another entry, this one written a few years later. April 3rd, 2008. Lillian is getting married. She called to tell me, and it felt like a knife in my heart. But she deserves happiness. I hope her new husband can be the father Leo needs. I wish I could be there for him more, but I have to focus on my life with Grace. I can't let her down. "It must have been so hard for him," I said softly, my anger melting into sorrow. "Living with that kind of pain and guilt every day." "It doesn't excuse what he did," Sarah pointed out gently, "but it does explain it a bit. He was trying to protect you in his own way." I nodded, wiping away a tear. "And now I have to figure out how to move forward. I can't ignore this. Leo's out there, and he needs someone." Sarah looked at me thoughtfully. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to find him," I said with determination. "He deserves to know about his father, and I need to meet him. Maybe I can help him in some way." Sarah smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "That's incredibly brave of you, Grace." "It doesn't feel brave," I admitted. "It feels terrifying, but it's the right thing to do." A few days later, with the support of Sarah and Daniel's parents, I started my search for Leo. I had some information from the diary, mentions of places and names that could be leads. It was a daunting task, but I was determined. One afternoon, I made a call to a number I had found in Daniel's address book. It was listed under Lillian. My hands trembled as I dialed, and my heart pounded as the phone rang. "Hello?" A woman's voice answered, sounding cautious. "Hello, is this Lillian?" I asked, my voice unsteady. "Yes, who is this?" she replied. "My name is Grace. I'm Daniel's widow." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I see," she said finally, her voice tight with emotion. "What do you want, Grace?" "I found Daniel's diary," I said, taking a deep breath. "I know about you and Leo. I want to meet him. I think he deserves to know about his father." Lillian was silent for a moment, and then I heard a sigh. "This is unexpected. Leo has always known about Daniel, but he never understood why his father wasn't around. Meeting you, it could be a lot for him." "I understand," I said quickly. "I don't want to disrupt your lives. I just think it's important for him to know that he has family who cares about him." Lillian hesitated. "All right, let me talk to Leo. I'll call you back." "Thank you," I said, relief washing over me. "Thank you so much." The following week, I received a call from Lillian. She agreed to meet me at a cafe in town. My heart raced as I approached the small, cozy cafe where we had arranged to meet. Through the window, I saw a woman with auburn hair sitting at a table, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. Beside her was a young boy with dark, curly hair, Leo. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door and walked in. Lillian looked up, her eyes meeting mine with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Leo glanced at me, his expression wary but curious. "Grace?" Lillian asked, standing up. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Lillian offered a tentative smile. "This is Leo." I knelt down to Leo's level, offering him a gentle smile. "Hi, Leo. I'm Grace. I was married to your dad." Leo looked at me with wide eyes, his curiosity evident. "You knew my dad?" "Yes, I did," I said softly. "He loved you very much." Lillian placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "Why don't we sit down and talk, Grace?" We took our seats, and I shared stories of Daniel, trying to bridge the gap between the man I knew and the father Leo had heard about. As we talked, I saw a flicker of recognition in Leo's eyes. a connection forming between us. I want to be a part of your life, Leo, I said gently, if you'll let me. Leo looked at his mother, then back at me. Okay, he said quietly. I like that. In that moment, I felt a surge of hope. Despite the pain and secrets of the past, there was a chance for healing and new beginnings. Together, we would find a way forward. The initial meeting with Leo and Lillian was a cautious but hopeful beginning. After that day at the cafe, we began to navigate the delicate process of integrating Leo into my life. It wasn't just about opening my home to him, it was about opening my heart and creating a sense of family for both of us. Leo moved in with me a few weeks later. It was a significant adjustment for both of us. My house, once filled with silence and solitude, now echoed with the sounds of a young boy finding his place. Leo, shy and reserved at first, began to slowly open up as he felt more comfortable. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, Leo poked at his food, lost in thought. I decided to break the silence. Leo, how was school today? I asked, trying to encourage him to share. It was okay, he mumbled, not looking up. I placed my fork down, giving him my full attention. Just okay? Anything interesting happen? He shrugged, then glanced up at me, his dark eyes searching my face. Some kids were talking about their dads. I didn't know what to say. My heart ached for him. It's all right to feel that way, Leo. You can always talk to me about your dad, you know. He loved you very much. Leo's gaze dropped to his plate. I miss him, even though I didn't know him well. It's weird. I reached across the table, gently squeezing his hand. It's not weird at all. It's natural to miss him. I miss him too. Leo looked up, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Can you tell me more about him? I smiled, feeling a mix of sadness and warmth. Of course, your dad was a wonderful man. He was kind and had a great sense of humor. He loved woodworking and spent a lot of time in the barn working on projects. He would have loved to teach you. Leo's eyes widened a little. Really? Yes, I said, nodding. He was very talented. I can show you some of the things he made if you like. I like that, Leo said quietly, a small smile forming on his lips. Over the next few weeks, Leo and I began to bond over stories of Daniel and shared activities. I discovered that Leo had inherited Daniel's love for building things, and we spent hours in the barn working on simple projects. It was a way for both of us to feel closer to Daniel and to each other. One day, while we were in the barn, Leo looked up from the birdhouse we were making. Grace, can I ask you something? He said, his tone serious. Of course, Leo. Anything. Why did my dad leave me and Mom? Why did me stay with us? His voice wavered, and I could see the pain in his eyes. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Your dad loved you and your mom very much, Leo. He had a very difficult choice to make. He wanted to be there for you, but he also loved me and didn't want to hurt anyone. It was a situation that made him feel very torn. It wasn't because he didn't care about you. Leo looked down, fiddling with a piece of wood. It's just hard to understand. I know, sweetheart, I said softly, kneeling down to his level. It's hard for me too. But what's important is that you know he loved you deeply. I'm here for you now, and I'm not going anywhere. Leo met my gaze, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. I'm glad you're here, Grace. Caring for Leo wasn't without its challenges. One of the biggest hurdles was his health. Leo had a congenital heart condition that required surgery. The thought of him going through such a serious procedure was terrifying, but I was determined to do everything I could to ensure he received the best care. I reached out to Daniel's parents, who were shocked and saddened to learn about Leo, but immediately offered their support. They helped me navigate the medical system and arrange consultations with top specialists. The community also rallied around us, organizing fundraisers and donating generously to help cover the costs. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Leo and I sat on the couch watching a movie. He leaned against me, his small body feeling fragile yet strong. Grace, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, I'm scared about the surgery. I wrapped my arm around him, holding him close. I know, Leo, it's okay to be scared. But you're a brave boy, and you have so many people who care about you and are here to support you. Will you be with me? He asked, looking up at me with those big, trusting eyes. Always, I promised, kissing the top of his head. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. Leo snuggled closer, and I felt a surge of fierce protectiveness and love. He was becoming more than just Daniel's son to me. He was becoming my son too. The day of the surgery arrived, and I could barely keep my anxiety in check. We sat in the hospital waiting room, the sterile smell and harsh lighting doing nothing to calm my nerves. Leo squeezed my hand, his own fear evident. Everything will be all right, Leo, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He nodded, but his grip tightened. I'm glad you're here, Grace. The surgery felt like it took an eternity, but finally the doctor came out, a reassuring smile on his face. The surgery went well. Leo is a strong boy. He'll need some time to recover, but we're optimistic. Relief washed over me and tears of gratitude filled my eyes. Thank you, doctor. When I was finally allowed to see Leo, he looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. Grace, he whispered, his voice weak but filled with relief. I'm here, Leo, I said, taking his hand in mine. You did great. You're so brave. Leo smiled faintly. I'm glad you're my family. In that moment, all the struggles and pain felt worth it. Leo was my family, and I was his. Together, we would face whatever came next with love and strength guiding our way forward. Life with Leo settled into a steady rhythm after his surgery. His recovery was progressing well, and our bond was growing stronger each day. I was starting to feel like we were finding our new normal. However, just as I began to relax, Lillian returned, bringing with her a storm of emotions and conflict. It began with an unexpected knock on the door one crisp autumn morning. I had opened it to find Lillian standing there, her expression a mix of determination and hesitation. Lillian, I said, surprised, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you, Grace, she replied, her voice firm. May I come in? I hesitated for a moment before stepping aside. Of course, come in. We moved to the living room, an uncomfortable silence hanging between us. I gestured for her to sit down, but she remained standing, her eyes scanning the room before settling on me. I've been thinking a lot since we last met, she began, crossing her arms over her chest. And I've decided that I want Leo back. He's my son, and he belongs with me. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Lillian, I understand how you feel, but Leo has been through so much. He needs stability, and he's found that here with me. Lillian's eyes flashed with anger. He's my child, Grace. You don't have the right to keep him from me. I've made mistakes, but I'm his mother. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my own emotions in check. I'm not trying to take him from you, Lillian, but ripping him away from the life he started to build here would do more harm than good. We need to think about what's best for him. What's best for him is to be with his mother, she insisted. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm prepared to fight for custody. Fear and frustration welled up inside me. Lillian, please, let's not make this about a legal battle. Let's work together for Leo's sake. He needs both of us. Lillian shook her head, her expression hardening. I'm not interested in sharing him, Grace. I'm his mother, and I will get him back. With that, she turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, stunned and terrified. The legal battle that followed was one of the most exhausting and emotionally draining experiences of my life. Lillian was determined and relentless, and despite my best efforts to cooperate, it quickly became clear that this would not be resolved easily. One evening, after another long day of meetings with lawyers and court proceedings, I sat on the edge of Leo's bed, watching him sleep. His peaceful expression was a stark contrast to the turmoil I felt inside. Sarah sat down beside me, her presence a comforting anchor. How are you holding up? I shook my head, feeling the weight of exhaustion. I don't know, Sarah. I'm doing everything I can, but it feels like it's never enough. What if the court sides with her? Sarah placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're doing everything right, Grace. The court will see that you're providing a loving and stable home for Leo. You have the community's support, and that counts for a lot. I nodded, trying to absorb her words of encouragement. I just want what's best for Leo. I don't want him to get caught in the middle of this. He knows you love him, Sarah said softly. And that's what matters most. No matter what happens, he knows you're fighting for him. The day of the final court hearing arrived, and the tension was palpable. I sat with my lawyer, my heart racing as the judge reviewed the case. Lillian sat across from me, her expression determined and resolute. The judge finally looked up, his gaze shifting between Lillian and me. After reviewing the evidence and considering the testimonies, it is clear that both parties care deeply for the well-being of the child. However, the court must make a decision based on the best interests of Leo. I held my breath, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Given the stability and support Leo has found in Grace's home, and considering his recent medical condition, the court awards primary custody to Grace with regular visitation rights for Lillian. Relief and gratitude flooded through me, but I also felt a pang of empathy for Lillian. She looked devastated, her shoulders slumping in defeat. After the hearing, I approached her outside the courtroom. Lillian, I'm sorry. This isn't what I wanted. Leo needs both of us in his life. Can we find a way to work together? Lillian looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. I don't know, Grace. This is so hard. I know, I said gently, but for Leo's sake, we have to try. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Okay, we'll try. In the weeks that followed, Lillian and I began to navigate the delicate balance of co-parenting. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension and misunderstanding, but we both made an effort for Leo's sake. One afternoon, Lillian came over to visit Leo. They were in the living room, playing a board game, and I watched from the kitchen, feeling a sense of hope. Your move, Mom, Leo said, looking up at her with a smile. Lillian smiled back, her expression softening. All right, let's see. I think I'll go here. Leah laughed as she made her move, and the sound was like music to my ears. For the first time in months, I felt like we were moving towards a new kind of normal. Later that evening, after Lillian had left, Leo came to me with a thoughtful look on his face. "Grace, can I ask you something?" he said, sitting down beside me. "Of course, Leo. What's on your mind?" "Why do you and Mom fight so much?" he asked, his eyes filled with curiosity and a bit of sadness. I sighed, trying to find the right words. Sometimes adults have a hard time agreeing on things, especially when it comes to people they love. Your mom and I both love you very much, and we want what's best for you. We're just figuring out how to work together. Leo nodded slowly. "I don't like it when you fight. I just want us to be happy." I hugged him tightly, my heart aching. "I know, sweetheart. We're trying. We're all trying to make things better. And no matter what, we both love you more than anything." As I held him, I felt a renewed sense of determination. This journey was far from over, but we were taking steps towards healing and understanding. Together, we would find a way to make it work, for Leo's sake and for our own. The months following the custody decision were a time of transition and healing for all of us. Lillian and I worked hard to put aside our differences for Leo's sake, establishing a co-parenting routine that provided him with the stability and love he needed. It wasn't easy, but we were making progress. As life began to settle, I found myself slowly opening up to new possibilities, both for myself and for our family. One of those new possibilities came in the form of Christopher. We met at a community fundraiser for the local school. I had been volunteering more, trying to give back to the community that had supported me and Leo through the toughest times. Christopher was there too, lending a hand with setting up tables and organizing donations. "Hi, I'm Christopher," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "Grace," I replied, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." His warm smile and easygoing nature immediately put me at ease. As we worked side by side, chatting and laughing, I felt a connection I hadn't experienced in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Christopher and I saw more of each other. He would often stop by the house, helping with projects and spending time with Leo. The bond between him and Leo grew naturally, and I could see how much Leo enjoyed having a positive male role model in his life. One evening, after a particularly fun day at the park, Leo and I sat on the porch, enjoying the cool breeze. Christopher had just left, and Leo was full of excitement. "Christopher's really nice, Grace," Leo said, swinging his legs back and forth. "Do you think he likes you?" I laughed, ruffling his hair. "I think so, Leo, and I like him too. How do you feel about that?" Leo looked thoughtful for a moment. "I like it. He makes you smile a lot." "He makes you smile too," I pointed out. "Yeah, he does," Leo agreed, leaning his head against my shoulder. "I like having him around." Christopher and I continued to grow closer, and after several months, our relationship became more serious. One evening, after a lovely dinner out, Christopher turned to me, his expression earnest. "Grace, I know this might seem fast, but I'm sure of how I feel about you and Leo. I love you both, and I want to be a part of your lives. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy filled my eyes as I looked at him, my heart swelling with happiness. "Yes, Christopher. Yes, I will." Leo was thrilled when we told him the news. He had grown to love Christopher, and the idea of him officially becoming part of our family filled him with excitement. The wedding was a small, intimate affair held in our backyard with close family and friends. Lillian attended with Leo, and seeing her there supportive and genuine felt like a significant step in our journey of healing and cooperation. As I stood at the altar, holding Christopher's hands, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. We exchanged vows, promising to support and cherish each other, and to create a loving and stable home for Leo. "To you, Grace, take Christopher to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, for as long as you both shall live?" the officiant asked. "I do," I replied, my voice steady with conviction. "And do you, Christopher, take Grace to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Christopher answered, his eyes shining with love. "You may now kiss the bride," the officiant declared. As Christopher and I kissed, I felt a wave of pure happiness wash over me. This was a new beginning, a chance to build a life filled with love and joy. Life as a family with Christopher was everything I had hoped for and more. He was a wonderful husband and an amazing father to Leo. We spent our days creating new memories, from family dinners and movie nights to weekend outings and vacations. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Leo looked at us with a serious expression. "Grace, Christopher," he began, "I know you're not my real dad, Christopher, but you feel like one. Can I call you Dad?" Christopher's eyes filled with tears, and he reached across the table to take Leo's hand. "Of course you can, Leo. I would be honored." Leo beamed, and I felt a deep sense of contentment. Our family was complete, and the love we shared was stronger than ever. The transition from a life filled with grief and uncertainty to one of joy and stability was not without its challenges, but it was a journey worth taking. I found fulfillment in my roles as a mother and a wife, and I discovered new strengths within myself. One sunny afternoon, as we worked in the garden, Christopher turned to me with a thoughtful look. "Grace, have you ever thought about writing a book? You have such an incredible story to tell." I paused, considering his words. "I've thought about it, but I'm not sure where to start." "Start with the truth," he said, smiling. "Tell your story, our story. It's one of love, resilience, and new beginnings." Inspired by his encouragement, I began to write, pouring my heart into the pages. It was a cathartic process, and as I wrote, I realized how far we had come. Our journey was a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. As I finished the last chapter, I felt a sense of closure and accomplishment. Our story wasn't just about loss and struggle. It was about finding hope and building a future filled with love and happiness. And so, with my family by my side, I embraced our new beginnings, ready to face whatever the future held with courage and love. The process of healing and growth was gradual, marked by small victories and moments of deep reflection. As we settled into our new life, I began to notice the subtle changes in all of us, how we were learning to let go of the past and embrace the present. One crisp autumn morning, Leo and I were out in the garden, raking leaves. It had become a sort of tradition for us, and it was one of the times when Leo felt most open to talking about his feelings. "Grace," he began, his voice tentative, "do you think my dad would be proud of me?" I paused, looking at him thoughtfully. "Of course he would, Leo. Your dad loves you very much, and he'd be so proud of the person you're becoming." Leo looked down at the pile of leaves, a small smile playing on his lips. "I hope so. Sometimes I wish I could talk to him, ask him questions." I knelt down beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I know, sweetheart. It's okay to miss him and have those questions. You can always talk to me or Christopher. We're here for you." He nodded, his eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. "Thanks, Grace. I'm really glad I have you." "I'm glad I have you too, Leo," I replied, hugging him tightly. Christopher joined us in the garden a little later, and we spent the rest of the morning laughing and playing in the leaves. It was one of those simple moments that made me realize how far we had come and how much healing had taken place. One evening, as Christopher and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, he turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Grace, have you thought about going back to work or maybe doing something new?" I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "I've thought about it. I miss my job sometimes, but I've also been enjoying the time I've had with Leo and you. What about you?" "I've been thinking about starting my own business," he said, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "Something related to home renovation and repairs. It's always been a passion of mine, and I think it's time to take the leap." "That sounds amazing, Christopher," I said, feeling a surge of pride. "You're so talented, and I know you'd be great at it. Maybe I could help with the administrative side of things, get us started." His smile widened. "I'd love that. We make a great team." As we talked about our plans, I felt a sense of purpose and excitement that I hadn't felt in a long time. We were building something together, creating a future that was filled with possibilities. In the months that followed, we worked hard to bring Christopher's business to life. I handled the paperwork and marketing, while Christopher focused on the projects. We quickly gained a reputation for quality work and reliable service, and soon we had more clients than we could handle. One day, while we were working on a renovation project, Leo came up to me with a serious look on his face. "Grace, can I talk to you?" he asked, glancing nervously at Christopher. "Of course, Leo," I said, setting down my clipboard. "What's on your mind?" He took a deep breath, then looked at Christopher. "I've been thinking a lot about Dad lately, and I want to do something to remember him. Like a special project or something." Christopher walked over, his expression supportive. "That sounds like a wonderful idea, Leo. What kind of project were you thinking about?" Leo's eyes brightened. "I was thinking we could build something in the garden, like a memorial bench or a birdhouse. Something that reminds us of him." "I think that's a beautiful idea," I said, feeling a lump in my throat. "Your dad loved working with wood, and I'm sure he'd be honored." Christopher nodded in agreement. "Let's do it together. We can make it a family project." Over the next few weeks, we worked on the project, gathering materials and planning the design. It became a way for us to honor Daniel's memory and create something meaningful together. As we finished the memorial bench, Leo stepped back, admiring our work. "It's perfect," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Dad would have loved it." "We did a great job," Christopher said, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder. "And your dad would be very proud of you, Leo." Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at the bench, thinking about Daniel and the journey we had been on. "This is a beautiful tribute, Leo. Thank you for suggesting it." Leo hugged me tightly, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace. We had found a way to heal, to grow, and to honor the past while embracing the future. As the seasons changed, so did we. Our lives became a blend of old memories and new experiences. each one shaping us in different ways. The wounds of the past were still there, but they were healing, leaving behind scars that reminded us of our strength and resilience. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Leo looked at us with a thoughtful expression. "Grace, Christopher, I've been thinking about what I want to do when I grow up." "Oh," I said, curious. "What have you been thinking about?" "I want to help people like you two do," he said, his eyes shining with determination. "Maybe I could be a doctor or a teacher, or even start my own business like Christopher." Christopher smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "You can be anything you want, Leo, and whatever you choose, we'll support you all the way." Leo grinned. "Thanks, Dad. I know I can do it with you guys by my side." As we continued our meal, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had been on. We had faced so many challenges, but we had also found love, healing, and growth. And as I looked at my family, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together, with strength and love guiding our way. The journey we had traveled together had been filled with highs and lows, joy and sorrow. But as time moved forward, so did we. Our lives were now firmly rooted in the present, and we were ready to embrace whatever the future held. One bright spring morning, our family gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. The sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room. Christopher was flipping pancakes, and Leo was setting the table, humming a tune. "Mom," Leo said, looking up at me with a twinkle in his eye, "guess what? I got an A on my science project." "That's wonderful, Leo," I exclaimed, giving him a high five. "What was your project about?" "It was about renewable energy," he replied proudly. "I built a model of a wind turbine and explained how it works. My teacher said it was the best project in the class." Christopher turned around, his spatula in hand, and grinned. "That's my boy. I knew you could do it." As we sat down to eat, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Our family had come a long way, and the future looked bright. Later that day, I received a phone call from Sarah. She had always been a close friend and confidant, and we made a point to catch up regularly. "Grace, I have some exciting news," she said, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "What is it?" I asked, curiosity piqued. "I've been offered a position as the head of the new community center," she announced. "And I want you to join me as the coordinator for family programs." I was stunned. "Sarah, that's amazing. But are you sure I'm the right person for the job?" "Absolutely," she replied without hesitation. "You've been through so much and have so much to offer. You're empathetic, organized, and passionate. Plus, you're already such a vital part of the community. We need someone like you." I smiled, feeling a surge of excitement. "I'd love to, Sarah. This sounds like a wonderful opportunity." As I settled into my new role at the community center, I found a renewed sense of purpose. Working with families, organizing events, and creating programs that brought people together gave me immense satisfaction. Christopher's business continued to thrive, and he was happy with his decision to start it. We were both doing what we loved, and it made our lives all the richer. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, Christopher took my hand. "Grace, I've been thinking a lot about our future," he said softly. "We've built something beautiful here, but I think it's time we expand our family. What do you think about having another child?" I looked at him, my heart swelling with love. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Christopher. I've been thinking about it too. Leo would make a great big brother." Christopher smiled, leaning in to kiss me. "Then let's do it. Let's embrace this new chapter with open hearts." A few months later, we found out I was pregnant. The news filled our home with joy and anticipation. Leo was ecstatic about becoming a big brother and began helping us prepare for the new arrival. One afternoon, while we were decorating the nursery, Leo turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, do you think the baby will like me?" he asked, his voice tinged with worry. I knelt down beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Of course, Leo. The baby will love you. You're going to be an amazing big brother." He smiled, a look of determination on his face. "I'm going to teach them everything I know and take care of them, just like you and Dad take care of me." Tears welled up in my eyes as I hugged him tightly. "You already are an amazing big brother, Leo, and I'm so proud of you." As my pregnancy progressed, our family grew even closer. Christopher and Leo were by my side every step of the way, making sure I was comfortable and happy. The community rallied around us, celebrating this new chapter in our lives. One sunny afternoon, we held a baby shower in our backyard. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered to share in our joy. Lillian came too, bringing a beautiful hand-knitted blanket for the baby. "This is lovely, Lillian." "Thank you," I said, touched by her thoughtful gesture. Lillian smiled warmly. "I'm happy for you, Grace. You've built a wonderful life here, and I'm glad to be a part of it." "We're glad to have you in our lives," I replied sincerely. "Thank you for your support." As the party continued, I watched Leo playing with his friends, Christopher chatting with neighbors, and Lillian mingling with the guests. It was a scene of harmony and happiness, a testament to how far we had come. The day finally arrived when our baby was born. Christopher and I welcomed a beautiful baby girl, whom we named Emily. Holding her in my arms, I felt a rush of love and gratitude. "Welcome to the world, Emily," I whispered, tears of joy streaming down my face. "You're surrounded by so much love." Leo peeked into the room, his eyes wide with wonder. "Can I hold her, Mom?" "Of course, sweetheart," I said, carefully placing Emily in his arms. Leo cradled her gently, his face lighting up with a radiant smile. "Hi, Emily. I'm your big brother, Leo. I'm going to take care of you." Christopher wrapped his arms around us, his eyes glistening with tears. "We've got a beautiful family, Grace. I couldn't ask for more." As the years passed, our family continued to grow and flourish. Leo excelled in school and became a protective and loving big brother to Emily. Christopher's business thrived, and I found immense fulfillment in my work at the community center. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I looked at my family, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and contentment. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" I asked, smiling at Christopher. He nodded, taking my hand. "Every day, and I'm grateful for every moment." Leo looked up from his plate, curiosity in his eyes. "What do you mean, Mom?" I smiled, ruffling his hair. "I mean that our journey hasn't always been easy, but we've grown stronger and closer because of it. We've learned to embrace the future with open hearts, and that's something very special." Emily, now a lively toddler, giggled and reached for Christopher. "Daddy." He picked her up, kissing her cheek. "We've got a bright future ahead, and we're going to face it together, as a family." As we sat there, surrounded by love and laughter, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we were ready to embrace them. Our journey was one of healing, growth, and love, a testament to the strength of family and the beauty of new beginnings. And as I looked into the eyes of my children and my husband, I felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that we were exactly where we were meant to be, ready to embrace the future together.